All right, so Sage's got a video game review for us today, and it's going to be for the Order 1886. Why did you pick this game to review? This game is
So it just had its 10-year anniversary, and it was kind of a big flop actually at the time it came out. And in hindsight, I think there's so in hindsight, I think it interestingly kind of developed a blueprint for what Sony first party games would become in a broader totality. Stuff like God of War, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, even. Sony in the PS4 generation really kind of developed this hyper cinematic, you know, this, super film like presentation to all their big single player games. And yeah, I was going back and looking at this again because yeah, it happened to have its anniversary recently of 10 years. And I thought, wow, this game, weirdly enough, kind of established this whole style of presentation as a company. And the fact that it was such a big flop, I thought that was interesting that it's despite not doing well, it had such a big impact on things going forward.
mm, okay. So let's know about the game.
Yeah, so this came out back in 2015 and it retailed for a full 59.99, which seems like a cheaper game at this point. But at the time, right, this was the full, what you expect a triple A price game to be. Now, did you ever play this yourself at all?
No, I remember it, but I never played it.
Do you know how long this game is?
No, I do not.
This is about 4.5 to 5 hours.
Okay.
So they had a huge, huge marketing push for this. Like this dominated Sony's first party marketing for like a full year. I mean, I worked at GameStop even at the time this came out, and the like TV in the store that's playing like every third or fourth advertisement was for this game. So like they served a lot of money into this, and I mean, visually you can see it holds up quite well to this day. Um, but unfortunately, that results in something that is very half baked, and it only lasts a couple hours. Like you get to the credits on this, and it feels like maybe Act One of the whole game. And I also thought it was going to be interesting just to talk about it a bit because this is Ready at Dawn that developed this, and they don't exist anymore. This game kind of crashing and burning is the reason for that. But they did do, I believe, these three games: God of War, Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta, and then I believe they also did the Daxter game that was on the PSP. So they're kind of a handheld studio, and this was a bit of their first big jump to and last jump to like big full AAA games. And I think you actually have something interesting here, which is kind of like this. It's like the Knights of the Round Table, but they're immortal basically. So they're this like order of knights that has existed for like 1,000 years, and they basically their blood has been blessed like holy water, and so they carry vials of their own blood around to drink whenever they get hurt, and it magically heals them up. It's sort of a fountain of youth thing. Um, but then you also have all these monsters, so werewolves, vampires, this sort of thing. And all the while, you're kind of treating the East India Trading Company as a sort of almost like BlackRock sort of company. We're a private military corporation, government conspiracy that's blending into this like PMC. And I think it actually is a lot of interesting setup. It's sad that it'll never go anywhere because, and this is why I thought it would be worth revisiting. It's got some really good ideas, but and I don't know if it's just the size of the team or money was just spent too much of it in the wrong places because, like I said, you end up with something really short here. But there's a lot of really great setup that unfortunately will just never go anywhere.
Mm. So the look of this, premise of it seems like something maybe that Alan Moore would do, or something like
Oh,
the
totally.
that movie. People know what was the League of Extremely
Ordinary
Extraordinary.
Gentleman.
Yeah,
Or
something
I
like
mean,
that.
sorry, that's not it. Extraordinary Gentleman.
Extraordinary Jim, and I always get it mixed up with the podcast. Every time I try to say the name, I always get it mixed up with that. But yeah, it
Well,
seems like kind of
if I
something like
remember
that.
right, that was a comic book that was based on, and let's see if I can find the writer of the comic because I believe that might have been. I'll pull that up in the background here, but
Okay. Yeah. So the reviews on this game
yeah,
got mixed reviews, everything like that, mixed to average. The Metacritic score on is 63 out of 100, so not very much really high praise for it there. The praise that it did get was direct to the game's production values, graphics, and technical achievements, but it received a lot of criticism for its length, story, gameplay, replay value, and the player's involvement in the game. Is that so? Yeah, that.
and that's the thing too is it's like a cover shooter, right? It's sort of that Gears of War style or Warhammer Space Marine 2 that we talked about not too long ago. Sort of that style of gameplay, but
They
it
blend it away.
it is the sort of thing where like it looks pretty great. It plays well enough, but you do have certain issues like for a cover-based shooter, you have sometimes a problem where the character will like stick to the cover, and it can be kind of hard to get them to move in the direction that you want. Like you're trying to get them to peek around a corner, and they'll just get out of cover entirely and stand there getting shot. So there's some technical stuff with the gameplay that's just like functionally just doesn't totally work. Um, and ultimately, like they set up a plot, and I feel like again, I feel like it's like the first act of a movie. You only get seeds of where it's going to go. And it acts like it has this big conclusion and then a very obvious tease for a sequel that's clearly never going to come out. I think it's just too bad that Ready at Dawn, who were clearly a very talented team, uh, got probably, I think, rushed a little bit here with this, or at least were, again, forced to focus on the wrong thing during the development. Because as amazing as it looks, if that time had been put into more level design or getting more of the story put together. Because the way it feels is almost like you even get a cutscene of, all right, and now you've unlocked the open world map, and then, but again, that's it. That it cuts and there's nothing else after that.
Mm. And you bring up a sequel, so yeah, this article is from actually pretty. It got updated there. This is from 2025. This is from February. This is IGN right here. So it says here, Sony turned down the Order 1886 sequel due to critical reception. Dev says Sony allegedly turned down a sequel to PlayStation 4 game, The Order 1886, due to poor critical reception. The co-founder of developer Ready at Dawn has said. Andrea Pisani told Minimax that Ready at Dawn pitched an incredible sequel and would have signed its life away to make it purely for the sake of players. The Order 1886 arrived in 2015 as an action game about werewolves in Victorian London, but despite among the best-looking games of the generation, it received middling reviews from critics. So yeah, that there. So I guess no chance for that. But no, maybe
Unfortunately,
it
not.
comes back. I mean, hey, Alien Isolation that came back. That's going to get a sequel. So
That's true. Though I think generally people were pretty big on that. I don't know if anybody is today really asking for a sequel to this. Although what I'll say is I do believe that the studio showed that they had potential to evolve this idea. Even though this is not, you know, a very complete feeling package in and of itself. I think that there's promise for something greater here. And based on, like, again, they made Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta. I think the studio clearly had a lot of talent and clearly showed that they were quite competent. And they could have pulled something off if they had been given the chance to keep going. And I think it's just a sign of, and this was 10 years ago and it's gotten worse since then, but I think it's a really big sign of the moment that budgets for video games really started to get bloated and just become too big and too much. Because before this era, on the back on like the PS3, if a studio put out a game and it didn't really do very well. But they had a great track record before that. They weren't going to get shut down off of this one success or failure, right? Like they were going to go and reconvene and try again and be more careful maybe this the next time, or try something very different, and or at least build on top of what they had. But I think it was really right around the time of the release of this that you started to see these game studios just get, yeah, these budgets where it's like, if this is either the studio's going away based on whether this works or not. And I think it sucks when people with talent can miss, and it sucks that one miss has you out of a job in this industry.
So the studio closed in August 2024, as you mentioned there. They had layoffs in April 2023. So some of the games they did already at Dawn Studio. So they did Dexter there. They did God of War: Chains of Olympus. They did Okima there. They did God of War: Ghost of Sparta. And these are the some of these are the PSP God of War games there.
Yep.
They did the God of War Origins Collection. They did, of course, the Order 1886. The Deformers there, Lone Echo, Echo
And then
Arena.
all the things post order, I haven't even heard of these. Like
Yeah, and
I don't know. I'm not familiar at all.
and these came out. So these their last games were all of this Echo stuff, like Lone Echo, Echo Arena, Echo Combat, and then Lone Echo 2. This was on the Oculus Rift. Maybe that's why you didn't hear about it.
All VR kind of gimmicky VR stuff, which and maybe I shouldn't say that because I haven't seen them, so maybe they're not gimmicky. But VR as a platform tends to be kind of gimmicky. So
Yeah. So they had that. Yeah. Yeah. Want to give your final thoughts and rating for Order
yeah.
1886?
So yeah, like I said, I thought this would be interesting to revisit because it's been 10 years, and I think it despite its kind of critical and commercial failure, it had a weirdly big impact on Sony's portfolio and kind of the way that they would the style and presentation of a lot of their games going forward. And I feel like it's not too normal that like something that's probably not talked about very much or thought of as just kind of like a middle of the road misfire uh, carries as much impact as something like this did. And people aren't talking about this anymore. Um, this is probably going to be the only video this entire year anybody does about this game. But I do think even with all of its problems, there's an interesting core here. There are some interesting character dynamics. The whole concept of the Knights of the Round Table in Victorian London, and the almost doing sort of a Black Rock thing, but with werewolves. I think that's all cool. It just doesn't get much of a chance to flesh itself out or get very far with any of this stuff. I wish it did, because I think a sequel might have actually been quite good. And the other part too was the price point. You can nowadays you could play this for $5, and for that, I think it's a solid stream it of an experience. It's you're not going to be raving about it or falling in love with the world completely, but I think there's, as far as like a video game history thing, there's interesting stuff to take from it. Um, but when it first came out at $60, this would have been like a total skip it.
Yeah. So you say you can get it. So you pay for $5 for it on the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, it's like $5. It's maybe 10 normal, and then it'll go on sale for five, or I've seen it on sale for like $2 before. So at that price, I think it's like a, well, let's revisit this weird little moment in game history. Um, Outside of that, it's not you're not going to get like this amazing experience out of it though.
And okay, so you can get that, and it's only on PlayStation. It can't get it on any
PlayStation
other console.
exclusive.
Yeah, it's not on PC at all. So yeah, so only on PlayStation you can get this if you have that. So
PlayStation has started to bring some of their games to PC, but I feel like I'd be surprised if they would consider this one to be worth the time to get it running.
mm, yeah. So that was Sage's review for the Order 1886. There, very nice.